I'm 98 years old now, and I'm holding a photograph of a man who should have killed me. His name was Franz Stigler. He was a German fighter ace, 27 victories. One more and he would have earned the Knight's Cross, the highest honor a Luftwaffe pilot could receive. I was that 28th victory, alone, crippled, defenseless, an easy kill, but he didn't pull the trigger. Instead, he saved my life. This is not a story about enemies. It's a story about humanity, about honor in the middle of hell, about the moment when a man chose mercy over glory. December 20th, 1943. I was 21 years old, and I was about to die over Germany. Bremen, Germany. Our target was a Focke-Wulf aircraft factory, the same factory that built the fighters trying to kill us every day. It was my first mission as aircraft commander, my first time leading a crew. I was terrified. We called our plane Ye Olde Pub, a B-17 Flying Fortress, 4 engines, 13.50 caliber machine guns, 10 men. That morning, as we walked to the plane, none of us spoke. We just knew this was going to be bad. There was my co-pilot, Spencer Pinky Luke, a farm boy from Missouri with red hair and a nervous laugh. Al Sadak, the navigator from New Jersey. He could find his way through any storm, any night. Hugh Ecke Eckenrode, the bombardier, quiet, precise, never missed. And the gunners, Sam Blackford, tail gunner, a kid from Texas who could hit a gnat at 500 yards. Jennings, the ball turret gunner, folded into that tiny glass sphere under the plane. And the others, 10 of us, 10 strangers who became brothers. We took off at dawn. 300 B-17s rising into the December sky like a swarm of silver locusts. The formation was massive, beautiful, terrifying. We climbed to 27,000 feet. The air was thin, cold, 40 degrees below zero. Even with heated suits, you froze. Your breath fogged inside the oxygen mask. Your fingers went numb on the controls, but you kept flying, because 300 bombers and 3,000 men were counting on each other. We crossed into Germany. That's when the Flak started. Black puffs of smoke blooming around us like deadly flowers. Each one was an 88-millimeter shell exploding with enough force to tear a bomber apart. Boom, boom, boom. The plane shook with every near miss. Shrapnel rattled against the fuselage like hail on a tin roof. We flew straight through it. You couldn't dodge. You couldn't turn. You just flew and prayed and watched bombers around you explode. One moment, there's a plane next to you. The next, it's gone. Just a fireball falling. No parachutes. 10 men gone. We reached the target, bombs away. The plane lurched upward as 12,000 pounds of high explosives dropped from the bomb bay. Mission accomplished. Now we just had to get home. That's when they came. Bandits, 12 o'clock high, the call came over the intercom. I looked up. Focke-Wulf 190s, Messerschmitt 109s, dozens of them, diving out of the sun. They came in waves, head-on attacks. The worst kind. A fighter coming straight at you at 400 miles an hour. You're coming at him at 200. Combined closing speed, 600 miles an hour. You have 2 seconds to shoot, 2 seconds before he's past you, or through you. Our nose guns opened fire. Brrrt. Tracers reached out, trying to touch them. The fighters fired back. 20-millimeter cannon shells, exploding rounds. They hit us. Wham, wham, wham. The first shell took out our number 2 engine. It exploded in a gout of flame and black smoke. I hit the feathering button, shut it down. 3 engines. We could still fly. Then they came again, another wave. This time from the side. The ball turret gunner, Jennings, was firing non-stop. Got one! He's smoking! But there were too many. A burst of cannon fire raked our right wing. Number 3 engine erupted in flames. I couldn't feather it. The controls were shot. The propeller windmilled uselessly, the engine burning. 2 engines now, on the left side only. The plane pulled hard to the right. I fought the controls with everything I had. Pinky grabbed the yoke with me, both of us pulling together just to keep it level. Then came the worst hit. A fighter came in from below. His cannon shells walked up the fuselage. Bomb, bam, bam, bam. One of them exploded in the nose. The plexiglass shattered. The wind screamed through the cockpit at 200 miles an hour. The temperature dropped to 60 below zero in seconds. Al, our navigator, was hit. Blood everywhere. Eki, the bombardier, slumped over. I couldn't tell if he was dead or unconscious. The oxygen system was destroyed. At 27,000 feet, you have about 15 seconds before you black out. "Dive! Dive! Dive!" I screamed into the intercom. I pushed the yoke forward. The plane nosed over. We fell. Not a controlled descent. A fall. The altimeter unwound like a broken clock. 25,000, 20,000, 15,000. My vision tunneled, gray at the edges. I was passing out. Pinky was unconscious, slumped in his seat. 10,000 feet. The air thickened. I could breathe again. I pulled back on the yoke. Nothing. The hydraulics were gone. I pulled harder. The plane shuddered, groaned, but slowly, slowly. It leveled off. We were at 8,000 feet, alive. Barely. I looked around. The plane was destroyed. The nose was gone. Just a gaping hole where the bombardier sat. The plexiglass was shattered. Wind howled through the cockpit. Number 2 engine, dead. Number 3, on fire, trailing black smoke. Number 4, damaged, coughing, barely running. Only number 1 was still healthy. We had one good engine, one. I tried to call the crew on the intercom. Static. The system was dead. I sent the engineer, Tony Slinker, back to check on the men. He came back 5 minutes later. His face was white. "Charlie," he said, his voice shaking, "the tail gunner's dead." Blackford. Sam Blackford from Texas. 20 years old. Gone. "The waist gunners are hit. Bad. They're bleeding out. Radio operator's unconscious. Ball turret gunners trapped. The turret's jammed. We can't get him out." I looked at Pinky. He was coming to, groaning. I looked at the instruments. We were losing altitude. Slowly, but steadily. We were 90 miles inside Germany, 90 miles from the coast, from safety, from home. And we were alone. The formation was gone. We'd fallen out. Stragglers don't survive. That's when I saw him. A glint of metal in the sun. A fighter, banking toward us. I felt my stomach drop. "Fighter! 9 o'clock!" I called out. But there was no response. The intercom was dead. The gunners couldn't hear me. I was helpless. I watched him come. A Messerschmitt Bf-109, sleek, deadly, fast. The most feared fighter in the Luftwaffe. He was positioning for a kill shot. From behind, where we had no guns. Our tail gunner was dead. We couldn't defend ourselves. I thought of my mother, my girlfriend back home. I thought, this is it. This is how it ends. But then he did something strange. Instead of attacking from behind, he pulled up alongside us. Close. So close I could see his face. He was young, maybe my age, blonde hair under his leather flying helmet, a yellow scarf around his neck. And he was staring, not at me, at the plane. His eyes moved over the destruction. The shattered nose, the burning engine, the blood splattered across the inside of the fuselage, the body of our tail gunner slumped in the turret. He saw it all. Our eyes met. For a moment we just looked at each other. 2 pilots, 2 enemies, separated by a few feet of air. And in that moment I saw something in his eyes, not hate, not triumph, something else. Recognition. He saw us not as targets, but as men, dying men. He pulled ahead, circled around, came up on our left side. He was flying formation with us. I didn't understand. Why wasn't he shooting? He raised his hand, pointed down and to the right, toward Sweden, neutral territory. He was telling us to land there, to surrender to the Swedes, not the Germans. We'd be interned, but we'd be alive. But I didn't understand. I shook my head. I pointed west, toward England, toward home. He shook his head, pointed again at Sweden, but I kept going west. I had to get my crew home. He hesitated, then he nodded, and he stayed with us. Franz Stigler flew beside us for over 30 minutes. I didn't know his name then. I didn't know he was an ace. I didn't know he was one kill away from the Knight's Cross. All I knew was that he wasn't shooting. He flew on our wing, matching our speed, our altitude, protecting us. From what? I didn't know. Then I understood. We were approaching the German coast. Flak batteries lined the shore, anti-aircraft guns that would shred us in seconds. But they didn't fire. The gunners on the ground saw the Bf-109 flying escort. They thought we were a captured B-17 being brought in to land. They held their fire. Because of him. Years later, Franz told me what he was thinking. He said he remembered his commanding officer in North Africa, a man named Gustav Rodel. Rodel had told him, "If I ever see you shoot a man on a parachute, I will shoot you myself." Franz said he looked at our B-17, barely flying, full of wounded and dying men, and he thought, "This plane is a parachute. These men are defenseless. To shoot them would not be victory. It would be murder." He thought of his brother, August, a Luftwaffe pilot killed on the Eastern Front. He thought of his own brushes with death. He thought, one day, that could be me. And he chose mercy. Not because it was easy, not because it would bring him glory, but because it was right. We reached the coast. The North Sea stretched out ahead of us, gray, cold, endless. If we went down now, we'd freeze in minutes. Franz pulled close one last time. He looked at me. I looked at him. He raised his hand. A salute. Not mockery, not arrogance. Respect. One pilot to another. I saluted back. Then he peeled away, banking hard to the east, back toward Germany, back to a war that would not forgive what he'd just done. If his commanders found out he'd let us go, he could be court-martialed. Shot. But he did it anyway. I watched him disappear into the distance, a tiny speck, then nothing. I didn't know if I'd ever see him again. I didn't even know his name. But I knew one thing. That man, that enemy, had saved our lives. We limped across the North Sea. Every mile was agony. The No. 3 engine finally quit, the fire burning itself out. We were down to one engine. One. A B-17 needs at least two to stay airborne. We shouldn't have been flying, but we were. The plane groaned and shuddered with every gust of wind. The controls were so stiff it took both Pinky and me pulling together just to make small adjustments. The wounded were crying out. The engineer was doing what he could, but we had no medical supplies, no morphine, no bandages, just blood and prayers. I kept my eyes on the horizon, looking for England, praying we'd make it. And then, finally, I saw it. The coast, the white cliffs, England. Home. I've never been so happy to see anything in my life. We were too damaged to make it to our base. I put out a distress call on the emergency frequency. An RAF field, seething, cleared us for immediate landing. I brought the plane in. No flaps, no hydraulics, no brakes, just gravity and hope. We hit the runway hard. The tires blew, the plane skidded, metal screeching against concrete. We slid off the runway into the grass, finally coming to a stop. Silence. Then the ambulances arrived. They pulled the wounded out. The dead. Blackford's body, frozen in the tail turret. I climbed out of the cockpit. My legs gave out. I fell to my knees in the mud. I couldn't stop shaking. We'd made it. 10 men went up, 9 came back. 1 didn't make it, but it could have been so much worse. It should have been worse. The ground crew gathered around the plane. They just stared. One of them counted the holes, over 200, cannon shells, machine gun rounds, shrapnel. The plane looked like it had been through a shredder. One mechanic shook his head and said, "How the hell did you fly this thing home?" I thought of the German pilot, flying beside us, protecting us. I didn't tell anyone, not then. Who would believe me? I didn't talk about that mission for a long time. It haunted me. The faces of the men I lost, the terror, the helplessness. But most of all, I thought about him, the German pilot. Why did he spare us? What made him choose mercy when he had every reason to kill? I wanted to find him, to thank him, to understand. But how do you find one man in a world at war? The war ended in 1945. I came home, got married, had a family, became a civil servant, lived a quiet life. But I never forgot. Every year on December 20th, I thought of him, the enemy who saved my life. And I wondered, was he still alive? Did he survive the war? Did he ever think of me? In 1986, more than 40 years after the war, I started searching. I wrote letters to Luftwaffe veteran groups, to historians, to anyone who might know. I described the mission, the date, the location, the BF-109 with the yellow nose, the pilot who didn't shoot. For 4 years, I heard nothing. Then, in 1990, I got a letter from Canada, from a man named Franz Stigler. I was the one, it said. I was the pilot who escorted your B-17 that day. I have thought of you often over the years. I am glad you survived. My hands shook as I read it. After 47 years, I had found him. We met in person in 1991 at a hotel in Seattle. I walked into the lobby, and there he was, an old man now, like me, white hair, kind eyes. But I recognized him, the same face I'd seen through the canopy of that BF-109. We didn't say anything at first, we just hugged. Two old men crying like children, former enemies, now brothers. Franz told me everything. He told me about that day, how he'd been scrambled to intercept stragglers, how he'd seen our crippled B-17 limping home, how he'd closed in for the kill, and then stopped. I could not do it, he said. You were helpless. It would have been murder. He told me he violated his orders. He told me he risked his life by letting us go. But he said he'd do it again. Honor, he said, is more important than victory. We became best friends. For the next 18 years, until we both passed in 2008, we were inseparable. We traveled together, spoke at schools, told our story, a story of humanity in the middle of inhumanity, of honor in the middle of war. Franz passed away in March 2008. I followed in November. We're buried near each other now. Two old pilots who once met as enemies in the sky and became brothers on the ground. War makes us enemies, but humanity makes us brothers. Franz Stigler didn't have to spare us. He could have shot us down, earned his Knight's Cross, become a hero. But he chose something greater. He chose mercy. He chose honor. And on that frozen December day over Germany, the enemy became my guardian angel. This photograph is all I have left of him now. But his memory lives on, in me, in this story, in the lesson he taught me, that even in the darkest moments, humanity can still shine through. Thank you, Franz, for my life, for the chance to come home, for showing me that even enemies can be brothers. Rest in peace, my friend, until we meet again.